I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Iris Freelander, and we'd like to talk to you today about spiritual longing for home. All of us have spiritual longings, and the spiritual longing to be at home or to go home somehow is deep within all of us. We want to be at home, and we want to be spiritual, and so I guess both of those things go hand in hand, don't they, Iris?
Yes, and if what we heard about heaven is true, and we like to think it is, then it is the most desirable place, and things are easier, and we get a lot accomplished, and it's a happy place, and happiness prevails. So certainly we have a longing and a homesickness for home, and I think then some our higher consciousness, we remember, and who one of those people who wrote books. Who's written spiritual books recently, said that we didn't come here because life is a school, and Neil Donald Walsh said that God said, we didn't come here to learn as life is a school. We came here to remember. And that gives us a lot of food for thought, doesn't it? Because when we look at life in that way, that we came here to remember, then it shows that we have all the knowledge within us, and I believe that we do, in our higher consciousness. Everything is available to us. We just have to be able to accept it. So as we go through life and we think, oh, deja vu, well, actually, we're remembering.
And that aspect of remembering who we are and remembering what we are is so tremendously important. You know, so often we think, and the saying that we hear all the time is, well, I'm only human. You know, we love to say that, well, I'm only human. And then, of course, we know from a spiritual standpoint that we're spiritual. We say so often that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience, not physical beings having a spiritual experience. So our nature is spiritual, but we're also mental. And so we spend a fair amount of time in our work, in both counseling and at the church, helping people to understand. And a great part of our movement, the New Thought movement and the metaphysical movement, is about the connection of mind, body, spirit. And when we connect those three things at the highest level, then we really begin the process of remembering who we are. Also, that aspect of remembering, just as you said it, I didn't, you know, we never know where we're going in these conversations, but that remembering is not only one of recollection or coming back into our conscious thought, bringing a thought back from the past or remembering in that way, but that aspect of making two words of it and saying that we are remembering ourselves. So we remember. Just as we say, and of course in New Thought we use a lot of plays on words, and we talk a lot about atonement as at-one-ment. And so that reality of remembering is dual in a way, because we are remembering who we are. People from traditional backgrounds may say we remember whose we are, and that's important too. But we remember who we are, and then we remember ourselves as whole mind, body, spirit. And then we even go beyond that to remembering ourselves to all of life in the sense of collective consciousness. And this issue of consciousness is something that may be new for some viewers. It's not new for us, of course, when we deal with mind sciences and New Thought and the kinds of backgrounds that you and I come from and from our faith tradition. But for a lot of traditional people, traditional religious backgrounds, it may be a new concept. And one of the concepts that we do try to share is this issue of the collective consciousness, and that is the collective level at which we all are we're brought back into membership with the entire human and spiritual family.
Yeah.
And I think that's an issue too. It's not a race, it's a family. And we spend our time trying to race around. And in fact, we are a family, and we're becoming a marvelous, and you know, one of the things that's happening in today's world so wonderfully, it's a great time to be alive. It's a magnificent time to be alive, because our planet is becoming so cohesive, and we're coming to know things about each other that we didn't know, and understanding things and tolerating each other. And we want to go beyond tolerating each other, but remembering. And when I think today of how little we know about other people and other cultures and other faiths and how little we even know about each other in our families and in our intimate circles, and how little we know about ourselves. And so a lot of the exploration, a lot of the inner work that we do and that we promote is about understanding ourselves, understanding our family, our sense of community, our spiritual community, and then understanding our unity and coming together and remembering at both the mental level and then at the practical level as well.
Yes, and then we understand ourselves more fully. And it's been said from time immemorial, know thyself, and thou knowest all. And that's a very good thing to remember, because if we know ourselves, then we're more tolerant of other people, and we're more loving and understanding, don't you think so?
And we're able to look beyond sometimes the behavior of other people.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things that we need to do. And also, we're able to give up things like judgment
Yes.
and fear. And of course, we judge people and we're afraid of people, oddly enough.
Yeah.
We judge ourselves and we're afraid of ourselves. And so we know that we need good psychologists, and we need good sociologists, and we need good spiritual leaders, but we sometimes look outside for those people to make us better. And certainly there are lots of wonderful people in the helping professions that do those things, but we have to do it ourselves. And in many instances, we can do it ourselves. And a part of the healing ministry that we talk about in New Thought has to do with personal responsibility for taking on the responsibility of healing and making ourselves well. And we've talked about that in other programs too, about the things that we eat, the way that we behave, the way that we take care of our physical bodies, the way we take care of our minds, and the way that we take care of our spiritual being. And all that has to do with going home, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does indeed. And there's a difference in being careful and thoughtful of our surroundings and our safety and the safety of others for whom we're responsible. And then in being worrisome and overly concerned, there's a big difference, because we need to be careful. We need to be careful to lock our doors and windows at certain times, and all the various things where we take precautionary measures. But when it becomes a fetish, or we make a career of it, then it becomes a negative factor in our lives. So we have to be self-assured and know that everything is going well, and everything it will. And the old saw, that which I feared has come upon me. Well, that's very well worth thinking about, because when we think negatively, then negative things happen. When we think positively, positive things happen. And as you say so often, certainly we're going to face adversity. Certainly we're going to have things happen that we wish didn't have to happen. But when we accept that, yes, this is just a part of life, then we're more able to be a whole person. And as a whole person, then we go home to God, we go home to our spiritual home in a healthy, viable way, as opposed to like groveling and begging. We go home in full form. And when we do, then we're growing in the way that we came to earth to grow. Don't you think that's so?
Absolutely. And we become whole persons, and then we become, as whole persons, holy persons. and I think all of that, although it seems like little plays on words, but those little plays on words help us to change our way of thinking. And this issue of fear is a real important one. And I think that fear keeps us from home. It keeps us from reconciliation. It keeps us from love and acceptance. We know about that on the physical level.
Of course.
And we know about all the wonderful biblical stories that we all grew up with about overcoming those things. But the reality is that our thoughts do create things, and our minds are creative. And so it is important, yes, that we do the things that we need to do that are prudent for our safety and for our well-being. But as we are fearful, just as you said, that quotation from Job, but it's not only ascribed to Job, it transcends religions, and that which I have feared has come upon me. Because as we fear, we begin a creative process that takes us far from our spiritual home and far from the safety and security of home, and it begins to create that which we just don't want. And I just think of the people who, and of course, healing is a major part of our outreach, a major part of New Thought and what our faith tradition is about. And when we think of the number of people whom we've known who have feared cancer and they develop cancer, or have feared Alzheimer's and they develop Alzheimer's. And we're not saying that that's always the case, and we don't want to make people believe that at any way, but often it is the creative power of mind that brings in and creates a space for that manifestation. When we look at unsafe environments, one of the things that we know is, and going into this issue of collective consciousness that we talked about earlier, if in fact we begin to have a fearful consciousness in a neighborhood, and if one house is broken into, for instance, and then other people start talking about, oh, isn't it unsafe? And then we begin to think that way, we begin to talk that way, we begin to create that fear, and then that fear draws that reality into our environment. We're going, again, farther away from home, and we're making an unsafe place. But that too will bring us the lesson that we need to learn. But we need to be cautious about that. We need to understand that our thoughts do either bring us home to where we need to be, or they bring us home to a place where we don't need to be, we don't want to be, and we ought not to be.
And it's not our law, it's God's law. And it's God's law that we are able to manifest. And because God gave mankind free will, then we're free to manifest that which we wish. And we make or create our own destiny by manifesting whatever it is that's in our consciousness, as you just said.
That creative power is dynamic, it's living, it's real, and it brings us home. And so just before we go on, we'd like to pause at this point in the program to offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so you can continue to study the ideas and concepts we're sharing.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the New Thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
A part of our topic is the longing for home. We have a longing for our unity with others and with the presence and power of God, don't we? That's a natural part of all of our innermost being, isn't it, Iris?
It's an innate part of our being, and when we don't honor it, then we feel confused and frustrated, and we don't know what's wrong. But we know what's wrong. It's because we're confused and frustrated, and we're not one-pointed in our thinking, because we can go home to God at any moment. We can go home to God through prayer, through meditation, and just through our thinking ability. So, and as you said, it's the longing that really propels us into new and different ways of thinking. And we have the choice of thinking in a negative way or in a positive way. And those people who are happy in their lives and are successful, and when I say success, I don't mean monetarily. Usually the money is adequate, their finances are adequate. But success is being happy with what we have, and happy with what we're accomplishing, and happy with what we're doing. And so often people think in terms of success as monetarily only, But that's selling ourselves short, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why in our particular movement and in our work, we spend so little time talking about that, because we believe that if we get the spiritual fundamentals right, then the prosperity comes along,
Exactly.
the healing comes along, the presence of God comes along, the peace comes along, and we are able to go home to God. So often people of different religious backgrounds and spiritual traditions are looking for that, or they're longing for that homegoing at some point in the distant future. And we certainly have no quarrel with that. And we believe that that homegoing is going to be marvelous and wonderful. But in the intervening period of time of this human life and existence, we have the ability to go into our spiritual home and to go home, as you said so beautifully, to go home to God in our thoughts and in our moments and in our experience, in our laughter and in our tears. And we can do that at any moment and any time. And of course, one of the things we'll touch on today, like we always do, is meditation and prayer and the techniques that we use to get there. But even beyond that, when those techniques and those practices become a part of our consciousness, a part of our thought process, and a dynamic of our inner being, and our unity of purpose and presence with the power and grace of God, then we're able to shift that in the daily living out of simple things. And we often think that spiritual principles are monumental, that they're big mountaintop, but most of us need to have the ability to have a practical, all of us need a practical faith that's going to allow us to have the strength to get up every day, to pay the bills, to go to work, to deal with our families, to deal with people around us, to deal with life, because it is in the living of this life, in this moment, that we need to be at home. And we need to always be at home, although we'll have that longing so often and that homesickness to be deeper and more profoundly spiritual, because that's our nature. But we can go home to God, and we can go home to peace, and we can go home to prosperity, and we can go home to guidance and direction in the midst of any circumstance. And we can do it that fast. Last Sunday we did that at church, didn't we?
Snap. Yes, and when we are happy within ourselves, then we're more attuned to the divine within and the divine without. And so there's that merging of the divinity within us with the holy divine. And when we live when we live a fulfilling life and set goals and visions, and then live up to what we aspire for ourselves, and it wouldn't matter what it is, we're more happy, and we're living in the spiritual aspect of being more fully, regardless of what it is. If it's playing in the playground with children, if it's taking care of business, if it's preparing meals or doing menial things, it wouldn't matter what it is, but we can be attuned to the divine within, therefore living from the spiritual aspect of our beinghood. And it's been said that we have 7 bodies, we have 7 major chakras, and that's an Eastern tradition, and more people, as you know, more people are in the West are turning to meditation, and therefore they're learning about the chakras, the force centers within their bodies. And we can live from any aspect of those 7 centers more fully. But the 3 highest centers are spiritually oriented, and when we're living to our fullest, we're living from the higher aspect of our being, and we're in tune and in touch with divinity. And when we are, then that reflects into the other work that we do, or whatever it is else we're doing here on earth. And we don't have to know those terms and the rules and the laws. We just have to live it, don't we?
And we do.
Yes.
And they operate,
Yes.
whether we know them or not. But if we know the operation of the laws, and if we allow ourselves to be a part of that process, then we are always at home, aren't we?
Exactly.
And then I think what will happen is at the end of this life, in that great homegoing, is that great homegoing will be such a simple transition, and we spend a lot of time talking and weaving into our both our messages and lectures and writings and talks the fact that life is changing, and that death is a part of that, and we don't want to dwell on that, but we do want to stress the fact that that process of going home in the physical sense to the next level, the next dimension of life, whatever our faith tradition tells us that is, and wherever we are comfortable with that, because what we think about it isn't going to change the reality of it. But we are going to learn that we have always been at home, and that we've never gone from our home except in our own minds. And if we look at that, at life in that way, that we're always at home, and that these deep spiritual longings for home are about bringing us back to a place where we have always been. And that goes back to the beginning of the program when you were talking so beautifully about remembering and recalling. And when we do remember and recall who and what we are, and we understand the connection of mind, body, and spirit, we realize we never left home. And we've never been out of that presence. And so as we go about our daily life, and as we go from place to place, we take it with us. And it is not a place that we pick it up and put it on our back. It is a place that moves with us. And we all know people who are at home in every circumstance.
Exactly.
And they're the most powerful individuals, not powerful from the manipulative standpoint, but they're powerful from the standpoint that they can operate within any environment. They can deal with any circumstance or situation because they are always at home, wherever they are. And that's where we need to be. That's the best place to be.
Exactly. And then that person is lifting the people around them and helping them to live in that same fashion more fully. And we all know people that we like to be around because they give us that sense in our own lives. And so we owe it to humanity. We owe it to each other. I don't mean to humanity, well, actually to humanity as a whole. Because you mentioned the mass consciousness, the global brain aspect of being, and it all works together, doesn't it?
It works together beautifully. And as we are able to share that with other people, we are able to lift them. And one of the things that we know is, just as you said again so well, when we're able to share that with others, there are so many wonderful things that can happen, and some people are going to share it better than others. And that's just a reality. I was interested to read recently, certainly no revelation, but a wonderful study that was done by 3 universities, I don't need to go into the clinical data, but the data was real simple, and that was that people who are positive and people who are supportive and people who are happy are people who are surrounded by other people, and people who are glum and negative are people who are alone because no one wants to be around them.
Yeah.
Well, of course no one wants to be around them. And so what we want to be a large family at home, and then we want to bring more people into that home, and we want to help those who are sad and depressed and who are feeling that they're estranged from the rest of us, if you will. And again, that doesn't have to do, we don't want everyone to, we're not about converting people to our religion. That's not our business at all. But we are about converting people to a different way of thinking about themselves so that they can be the best of whatever it is they choose to be, in faith, in life, in expression, in relationship, in all aspects of life, and to empower people to be with us, in unity with us, in the midst of all that's going on, and to bring them home, and to help them to understand that this longing to be home can be released. And when it's released with the understanding that we've never left home. We've never left. The presence and power of God has never left us. And yet we have come to believe that presence and power, that our limited mentality keeps us from doing things. And we know that regardless of our mentality, of our intellect, we can do great things.
Yes, and those people do great things who are an inspiration to others and who lift others. And when you were talking a moment ago, I was reminding of a song that we sing at our church love is a magnet that draws to me, and love is a magnet that draws others to us and helps lift others. And when we live a life of joy, happiness, and being self-assured, regardless of our circumstances, just being self-assured because we're doing the best we can. We know that we are, and so that's all we can do. But then we draw others to us and lift, and that's one of the unwritten laws that we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to be here doing, because we all know people who inspire and lift us, and we can do the same. And then it affects the global brain, the mass consciousness, and it helps us one step up in our evolutionary journey, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just as you were speaking, I was thinking of those wonderful, this is long from Christmas, but although this program may be shown at Christmas sometime, but those Currier and Ives pictures of home, and how, and what a warm place it is, and what a supportive place it is, and how we want to be there, and how we need to make room for more and more of us to be in that place. And what a great and wonderful feeling that is for ourselves and for all of the people around us.
And we all have our own idea of what heaven is like, but I think heaven is exactly like you just described, if that's your ideal. If whatever is our ideal, then it manifests on the inner planes of being when we go over. And we've had so many reports now from people who've had near-death experiences and people who are able to get information from the inner planes in various ways, that it's in heaven, it's what we envision. Whatever we envision, that's what we have.
That's what we have. That's what we have on the inner. That's what we have in this life, and we are always enriched by the ability to go home and to let go of our longings and to be one with that love. And love is a magnet, and then love draws us to each other and draws to us all of the things that we need. And so we hope that the information that we've shared with you has been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Mike and Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing New Thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.